Hello Moralis community, my name is Joseph and I am your Web3 instructor. In this video, I will show you how you can easily integrate the Moralis Node.js SDK with AWS Lambda. Now we're going to do this in two different ways. The first one we're gonna do with multiple functions right here. And the second one is going to be with Node.js Express API. Now for both these occasions, we're going to use serverless framework, and I will show you with Postman how we can do the requests and get the responses. Now for this, we're gonna do two different requests. So the first endpoint we're going to use is the get native balance endpoint for a specific wallet address. And the second one is the get wallet NFTs that will give us the metadata of NFTs that this wallet holds, such as the name, the symbol, the images, when it was minted and for how much, and much more. So let's jump straight into Postman. And in here, I have prepared these two get requests. The first one is the get native balance, and I have provided the address for that wallet and the chain ID, in this case, Ethereum. So when I hit send, the response that is coming back is how much ETH this wallet holds. Now, if we want to see how many Guerli this wallet holds, we can just change the chain ID to Guerli, hit send again, and then we get the response with this amount instead. Now the same thought process applies to the get wallet NFTs. In this case, we're only gonna try this one out with Ethereum to see how many NFTs this wallet holds. So when we hit send, we're getting the response back, and we can see that this wallet holds a ton of NFTs, over 1,600, and we can see the response from here. It's pretty clean and pretty easy to destruct this object. So we have the owner of this NFT, which should be this wallet address. We have the block number when it was minted right here, the contract type, the name, the symbol, and the metadata right here. And this goes on and on. So we put a limit to this with 10 NFTs, because otherwise we would get this whole response. So if this sounds interesting and you want to learn how you can build this, don't move, because I'm gonna show you step by step following the Moralis tutorial. So back in the Moralis documentation, let me show you the steps for us to set this project up. And let's begin right here with completing the AWS integration. Go to this link right here and create your AWS account if you're not already having one by following these easy steps. Now, this shouldn't take long. You're just gonna add your personal information. And after you've done that, close this tab and create a I am user. Now click this link to follow these steps instead of how you should do that. And this should also be pretty easy. I've just already done that. But make also sure you keep an eye on this guide right here, because we're going to need these two credentials to be as shown in this guide. And we will also need to save these credentials in a CSV file by the end of this completion. So once you've done that, close these tabs, go back to the documentation, and the next step is to create a Moralis account. You can do that at moralis.io. We will need these because we need our API key. Then I'm not going to show you how you can install Visual Studio Code and Node.js, but it's pretty quick and easy following these two links. Then we want to install the AWS CLI. Now go to that link, and depending on which operating system you have, make sure you expand the correct section. For me being right here. So what I did, I downloaded this package from this link, installed it. I had some trouble, so I just removed it and I re-downloaded it and installed it, and then it worked. So once you've done that, close this one, and now we want to install the serverless framework. So open this link instead. Scroll up a little bit and copy this command right here. So the -G flag means that we want to install serverless globally. So open your terminal, paste that in, and hit enter. Now I have already done that, so I'm just gonna remove it. and then we can close this tab and go back to the documentation. Now, if you have any issues with this, post a comment below this video and I will make sure to check it out and answer your questions. So once we've done that, we want to configure our AWS. So go to the terminal once again, hit AWS configure. Now I have already set this up. If you haven't, you shouldn't see anything in here. So what you want to do is to have this view right here. So if you see none, make sure you copy your access key ID. And this is from the credentials we saved in our CSV file. So paste the access key ID in there, hit enter. The next step would be to paste secret access key, hit enter again, and leave these two empty. And there you have it. Then we can just get going with the application. So what I'm going to do before I start with this is that I want to go to my terminal and create a new folder because I want to create both these ways of the AWS integration in the same folder. So if you want to do the same, just do a new directory. I'm gonna call it moralis.aws. I'm gonna cd into that one. And then from here, we can just follow this guide. So what we want to do here is to copy this command, go back to our terminal, paste that in, enter, and then we're going to get a few options. So for the first way of doing this, we're gonna use the first starter option, click enter, and then we're going to use the default name, so we can click enter once again. Now here we don't want to log in, so hit N and then enter. And we don't want to deploy it for now, so hit N and enter one more time. If you get stuck on this part, just type N and hit enter for the third time. If not, you're good to go. Now we've done these steps right here. So our next step is to open the project in Visual Studio Code. To make it somewhat easier, I have opened this up side by side. So let's get going with following these instructions. So first, let's create a new folder inside the project named functions. So within this one, let's create a folder called functions and continuing by placing the auto-generated handler.js inside. So let's just grab this one and put it inside. Now we have to open serverless the YAML file and set the new location handler.js. We also want to add Moralis API key as an environment variable, replace the code by copying this one, going to the YAML file and just paste that in. Now we're going to replace this one soon. I just want to show you how we can do it once we have created our Moralis account. To start, let's use the existing handler and rename it to nativebalance.js. So let's copy that one and change the name. And we will also change the hello export to handler instead. So let's do that. Now open the YAML file once again and make these changes. I'm just gonna copy this code from here and paste it in. So what we're doing right here is because we changed the file from handler to get native balance and then the export within that from hello to handler, we want to do the same things in here. So before this one pointed to handler file and hello export, but now it's get native balance that it's pointing to and the handler export. And we need to do this because we want to be able to deploy this later on to AWS and then make sure we can call these functions. So we need, within this get native balance, we want to require Moralis. So let's do that. We haven't installed Moralis yet, so don't worry. I'm gonna show you how we can do that as well. If we continue, we want to add this part as well, and we want to add it below the require Moralis line, like there. And what this is doing, it's basically using the start function that's provided by Moralis. We're passing along one argument, which is our API key. And once we start Moralis, this means that we open the gate for us to do API calls towards Moralis. Now let's swap this whole export section that we have to this. And you can see the difference from here. We're going to add the native balance and then the endpoint that we want to make a call towards, which is the get native balance. So make sure you swap that. Now our completed get native balance file should look like this. If yours look different, make sure you copy it from here and paste that in to be on the safe side. Now continuing, we're going to create another file within the same functions folder. This one is going to be called get wallet nfts.js, and we need to add that to the YAML file as well. So let's do that by pasting that in, hit save. And then add this code to this get wallet NFTs. Now the same as before with get native balance. In here, we're doing the same, but we want to call another endpoint. And this endpoint is the get wallet NFTs. We're passing along 3 arguments: address, the chain, and then the limit to 10, because we don't want to see all the NFTs that this wallet holds, at least not for this example. So I don't want to stringify the response because it's going to look very weird. It's an object. So let's remove this and the parentheses and save. So if you go to get native balance, you can see the response is outputted the same way. Now let's install the dependencies. For this case, we only need Moralis. So copy that one, go to the terminal within this project folder, paste that in, hit enter. Great, now that this is done, we're going to need to create an event.json file in the root folder. So let's do that, event.json. And in here, we want to add an address and the chain within an object. So let's start by creating an object. We want address in there, and then also chain. So 0x1 is the Ethereum chain. And for wallet, I'm gonna copy this one. You can use your own if you want to. That doesn't really matter for this example. So I'm going to paste that in and hit save. And then we can close this file. Now, before we can actually test this locally, we need to import our API key right here. So go to moralis.io if you haven't already and create your account. Now, once you've done that, log in and go to your Web3 APIs. And from here, you will see your API key. Copy this one, remove this and paste your API key in there instead. Hit save and close this file. Now let's go back to the documentation, open the terminal. Actually, let's copy this one and go back to the terminal. Paste this in, hit enter. And there we have the ETH that this wallet currently holds. Now, in this case, we call the get native balance function. So if we go to this event.json file and change this to, let's say 5, which is the chain ID for Guerli, and we run the same function once again, we see this token balance instead, which is how many Guerlis this wallet holds. So let's do Ethereum once again and save and go back to the terminal. Now this time, let's run the other function instead, which was get wallet NFTs. Hit enter. And there we have the response. So if I make this bigger, you can see that we have different NFTs that this wallet holds. If we go to the top, let me see right here, we see that this wallet holds 1,643 NFTs. We can see the same data as we saw in Postman, the owner, the block number minted, the contract type, the name, the symbol, the metadata, and so on and so on. So this is very, very powerful. Now that this is done, let me show you how you can do it the other way, which is with Lambda Node.js Express API. Now, what we want to do for this example is run the same command serverless, but instead of choosing the first one, which is starter, we want to choose Express API. So let's open our terminal. I've moved back one step to my Moralis-AWS folder, and then there I'm typing serverless, and I'm gonna choose this Express API. I'm gonna still use the default naming. And then once I'm asked if I want to log in, I'm gonna type N and hit enter. And then to deploy now, I'm gonna type N and hit enter again. Now that we've done that, we can open this project in Visual Studio Code. And now once again, side by side to make it easier for you to follow along, let's open the serverless YAML file and copy this code from the documentation and paste that in instead of what we had already. Now the same way, we're going to replace this comment right here with our API key. And this plugin is something we're going to install later on in the documentation. Now, inside our handler.js, we want to add a few things. So first of all, let's add this requirement that we're going to install as well. And then add the following part to allow different types of body formats. So just copy it and paste that below. Now, once we've done that, we want to fire up Moralis the same way we did before. So copy this part and as shown in the image, just add it below the section we just added. Now is where we want to add two different endpoints. In the previous example, we had two different function files. Now in this case, we're going to do it in this same. We're going to keep this root endpoint that we have. So we're going to add these ones below. So make sure you copy this file from here and paste that in. And what we're doing here is basically the same. We're doing a /getNativeBalance endpoint. And from there, we're using EVM API and the getNativeBalance, passing along two parameters, the address and the chain. Now, once we get that, we just want to return the response. So if we continue further down, we want to do the same with getWallet NFTs. So make sure you copy this code as well and paste it in below the getNative endpoint. Now this /hello endpoint is not needed, so let's just remove that one. And if you're unsure if you copied everything, you can see the final code for this handler.js file right here. And if you're unsure, copy this one and replace this whole part. Otherwise, just save both files. Now, let's add our API key in here the same way we did as before. So I've just added my API key and now we want to install these dependencies. So copy this from the documentation and go to the terminal, paste that in. Now, before we deploy to AWS, it's always good to test things locally. So because we're using this plugin in the YAML file, as you saw before, let's install this dependency, this plugin right here. So copy that and paste it in. Great. So let's go back to the documentation. And now is the time to test our application. So copy this command line, paste that in, hit enter, and there we have our server up and running. Now, if we go to this endpoint right here, we should see our root message, which is hello from root. Now we also have two other endpoints, the getNativeBalance and the getWallet NFTs. But for these two, we need to add some parameters. So in this case, we need to deploy it to AWS, and then we can use Postman to test it out. So if we continue further down, we can deploy this by just typing serverless deploy in our terminal. So let's close this server and paste that in and just wait for it to deploy this to AWS. Once you have deployed, come back to the documentation and we're going to test this one out using Postman. If you don't have Postman, there's a link down here where you can find and install it from here. And once you've done that, come back up. Once we log into our AWS account from this link, we will be able to see this right here. Now, only if you have deployed both of these applications. It's not needed because I'm going to show you the Node Express API, so make sure you have deployed that one at least. So once we go to this link, we're going to click on this Express API project that we deployed and go to configuration. Here, we want to copy our API endpoint. And now let's open Postman. Now make sure you create a new collection from here and add your API key from Moralis like this, and then create two different endpoints. Both should be get endpoints, and we want to paste the link that we just copied in this field right here and do a / and get native balance for the first one and get wallet NFTs for the second one. Then go to body, choose this section, this option right here, and add the address and the chain the same way we did in our event.json. Now like this, we can update it from here, click send, and then we should get the same response back, which is 44 ETH since this is the ETH chain ID. And if we go to the get wallet and click send, then it works the same way. We get all the data about this wallet NFTs that it holds, the block number minted, the name, the contract type, the metadata, and so on and so forth. Now, you don't need to use Postman. You can create a very beautiful front-end client for this. That's totally up to you. But I hope this was interesting enough for you to play around with Moralis Node.js SDK and integrate it very easily with AWS Lambda. Now make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. If you have any questions, post them below, and I hope I will see you in the next one.